All right, so since I'm doing a late bird thing, ooh, what is that thing? Is there something? I just saw something. What? Okay, so what is it? November the 3rd today? I wanted to go back and finish, or at least continue reading about the military law review for the Libra Code. So I'm going to share the screen and move this other stuff around. Okay, weird stuff here. And lift this, make this bigger. Okay, there we go. So the last time I think we finished off on 26, page 26. But let's just go over the top of page 26 because it looks good. So where do we want to start? Ooh, look at that. I'm just going to start here. Are the same ones listed in Article 1 of the 1907 Hague Regulations as being necessary to confer belligerent status and thereby acquire the right to be treated as prisoners of war? What? All that really has been added is that organized resistance movements are included, and they may operate in or outside their own territory, even if this territory is occupied. This latter phrase is very important in that it gives an explicit guarantee to uniformed resistance movements, such as those which sprang up during World War II in France, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and Yugoslavia. It is a break from the traditional rules in that under the Hague Rules, it was generally considered that once enemy territory was occupied, the inhabitants had to respect the occupants' attempt to restore and ensure public order and safety. 131, I don't know what that little reference is. Down there, pursuant to Article 43 of the Hague Regulations. And that the sanctions which could be utilized to put down resistance movements included the death penalty. 132 says, if, however, the people of a country or any portion of the same already occupied by an army rise against it, they are violators of the laws of war and are not entitled to their protection. Libra Article 52.2. Ooh, doesn't sound good. This is no longer true, since under the present provision, the occupant must treat uniformed, captured members of resistance movements as prisoners of war. 133 says Pictet, Supranote 123 at 58 to 59. However, the very nature of resistance movements or guerrilla units is often that they must operate with a great deal of secrecy and surprise is their stock in trade, because they lack strength to challenge the enemy's armed forces openly. That's for sure. Therefore, it is unlikely that the members of these movements will comply with the 4 conditions outlined, particularly the use of a distinctive insignia and the open bearing of arms. This being true, these people are left with only the procedural and general safeguards afforded by the Geneva Civilian Convention of 1949. Down here, reference 134, it says GCC, Geneva Civilian Convention, Article 5 and Part 3, Section 3. The penalty may still, in many cases, be death. It would appear that insofar as the categories of persons entitled to prisoner of war status, the scope of persons protected has not progressed very far beyond Lieber, particularly in the case of non-uniformed combatants. The law is still reluctant to spread its protective mantle. C, conventional warfare. 1, use of poison. Hey, Bill Gates, chemtrails. I'm pretty sure that's considered poison. A customary rule of international law was codified by Lieber's Article 70, prohibiting the use of poison in any manner, be it poison wells or food, Monsanto, or arms. This rule, of course, was in accord with the principle that the right of belligerents to adopt means of injuring the enemy is riot unlimited. 134.5 says CHR Article 22. The prohibition against the use of poison or poisoned weapons, you can't use poison darts, darn it, was carried forward into Article 23A of the Hague Regulations of 1907. The question has been raised as to whether or not it is lawful to poison the drinking water, provided a notice is posted up informing the enemy. Provided a notice is posted up informing the enemy that the water has been poisoned right here. Just because I put a notice for you, just to tell you I just poisoned the water. I peed in it. During World War I, the German commander in Southwest Africa attempted to justify such a practice, but it has been condemned. 136 says, Oppenheim, International Law, 340, 7th edition, Lauterpacht edition, 1952, citing 1 Garner, International Law, ASD, the World War, 190, 1920, British Manual, paragraph 112. Okay, where was I? Okay, so during World War I, the German commander in Southwest Africa attempted to justify such a practice, but has been condemned. This is in accord with the traditional British view. However, in a 1940 edition of U.S. Army, a Federal Manual 27 through 10, paragraph 28, it was stated that although it was unlawful to poison wells, etc., it was lawful to contaminate sources of water by placing dead animals therein, or otherwise, provided that such contamination is evident or the enemy was informed of it. Because of the doubtful value of this measure in modern war and the fact that the elements or third parties might destroy the evidence of contamination or any signs that might have been posted, the 1956 Federal Manual 2710 was changed so as to be consistent with the British view. 137. Unpublished annotation to paragraph 37B of Federal Manual 2710, 1956. Federal Manual 27-10, 1956 quotes the prohibition of Article 23A of the Hague Regulations, and in discussion states that this rule does not prohibit measures being taken to dry up springs, to divert rivers and aqueducts from their courses, or to destroy through chemical or bacterial agents harmless to man crops intended solely for consumption by the armed forces, if that fact can be determined. 138, Federal Manual 2710, paragraph 37, the use of chemical agents to destroy the foliage along the trails to prevent ambushes in South Vietnam has brought accusations from communist sources that illegal means of warfare are being used. Those guys did something wrong because, they damaged the foliage so that, we couldn't hide in the bushes, and that might be breaking the rules. What about the Agent Orange stuff? When they were throwing Agent Orange on people? Oh, well, that's not going to affect us our side because we're not down there. We're up here spraying the Agent Orange on those people. But wait, our people are down there. Oh, it's not going to affect them. It's only going to affect the enemy. Is that what they would say? So stupid. Makes you mad. The chief difficulty in applying this rule is encountered when considering poisonous rather than poisoned weapons. The addition of poison to an otherwise legitimate weapon, such as the spear, arrow, or bullet, would make it unlawful only because it would cause unnecessary suffering. Yeah, you don't want to be too unnecessary with your suffering of that collateral damage, right? It is a different matter when modern weapons, such as toxic chemical agents or nuclear weapons, are considered. Here, the poison, if it can be so called, is an after effect of the weapon's use or an essential part of the weapon itself. 139. Compare Minor Symposium Biological Warfare, 24 Military Review, 1964. The British manual ties the prohibition against poison or poisoned weapons in with the prohibition against asphyxiating, poisonous, or other gases and all analogous liquids. Hey, wait a minute. Would spray particulates like aluminum, barium, strontium, what else? Marburg, rhinovirus, lithium, would those count? Materials or devices including bacteriological methods of warfare. Yeah, right there. Including bacteriological methods of warfare. Marburg, rhinovirus. I think so. That's what I'm just saying right there. The chemtrails, boom, right here. Hello, right here. At this time, the United States is not a party to any treaty. What are you talking about? Now in force that restricts or prohibits the use of toxic or non-toxic gases or of bacteriological weapons in warfare. The Geneva Protocol of 1925 for the prohibition of the use in war of asphyxiating, poisonous, or other gases. Oh, wait, 1 second here, wait. Because when I was in the military, they made me go through the gas chamber, and that stuff, as soon as you take off your gas mask, your nose starts running and your eyes are watering and everything. Blah. So wait just 1 second. If they're not going to be using this in war, then why did I have to go through that gas chamber? I think I've been damaged. Right here. Or other gases and of bacteriological methods of warfare. 141. What does it say down here? Oh, wait, let me just read this. 140, British Manual, paragraph 111, and a footnote to that paragraph. Hague Regulation and the Gas Protocol are cited, and the following comment is added: the diffusion of poisonous and asphyxiating gases from cylinders or otherwise than by projectiles, a practice instituted by the German forces during the First World War, whether or not within the prohibition of the use of poison or poison weapons contained in Hague Rules 23A, was illegal insofar as it exposed combatants to unnecessary suffering. Conduct prohibited by that rule. Hey, I couldn't take a shower for 2 days. I had to run around the track and wave my arms. Damn it. I'm just saying. They wouldn't let us take a shower for like 48 hours. This comment, of course, leaves the question open if these gases did not cause unnecessary suffering. I couldn't take a shower for 2 days. That's unnecessary suffering. And not like I'm allowing the suffering, I'm just saying, but that's what they did in basic training, as prohibited by HR Article 23C. All right. What else are we reading here? Oh, what happened? I'm going to go back. However, the United States Senate has not given its advice and consent to the ratification by the United States. Oh. What do you mean? Huh? Therefore, it is not binding upon this country. Oh, so it's okay? That's why they're doing the chemtrails, because they're right here, because it's not binding upon this country right here. I'm just saying right here. Federal Manual 27-10, 1940, interpreted the prohibition of Hague Regulation 23A as not being applicable to the use of toxic gases. Federal Manual 27-10, 11956 is silent. You don't say on this point, and merely states that the United States is not a party to any treaty which would prohibit its use of chemicals or germs in war. 144 Federal Manual 27-10, paragraph 38. The question as to whether the United States is bound by a customary rule of international law restricting the use of toxic chemical agents remains open. You don't say. In regard to nuclear weapons, the noted authority Schwarzenberger, not to be confused with Arnold Schwarzenegger, reasons that they are illegal. Yeah, I agree. Because the resulting radiation is an analogous species of the genus poison, and therefore falls within the prohibition of Hague Regulation 23A. 145. For a comprehensive treatment of the subject, see Schwarzenberger, The Legality of Nuclear Weapons. Oh, okay, nuclear. Well, let me see, what do we got here? Article 35, Federal Manual 27-10, adopts the position that explosive atomic weapons are not violative of international law in the absence of a rule restricting their use. This conclusion is explained by the unpublished annotation to Federal Manual 27-10, 1956, by stating that the word explosive was inserted to avoid taking a position on the use of a nuclear weapon, the effect of which is limited to radiation. Such a weapon might be prohibited by HR Article 23A. It might be observed that Hague regulations, that's what HR is, not HR puff and stuff, and not HR as in human resources, but the Hague regulations merely internationalized Lieber's rule on the use of poison or poisoned weapons, and is still in effect as far as it goes. The major step beyond Lieber in this area has been the Geneva Gas Protocol of 1925, which adds the prohibition against gases and bacteriological warfare. Hey, bacteria. Yeah, bacteria. Is that not a virus because it's bacteria? Lieber did not deal with limitations on the types of weapons other than poison, nor their use, except in the most general way. However, this is understandable. Oh, really? Is it? At the time when he was writing, the cited weapon was almost universal. Except for small refinements, weaponry had not changed substantially since the days of the American Revolution. No new weapons proposed to change the techniques of warfare or to shift the weight of advantage toward either side. The ironclad warship was probably the greatest innovation in warfare of the time, except for the development of exploding projectiles. The situation with respect to weaponry did not change substantially until the advent of the airplane. Following the Lieber Code, the first attempt on an international level to limit the use of weapons was the Declaration of St. Petersburg in 1868. This declaration condemned weapons which uselessly aggravate suffering and forbade the employment of any projectile of a weight below 400 grams, about 14 ounces. That's kind of like a bottle of shampoo. Yeah, a bottle of shampoo is like 12 ounces. So I'm just saying, which is either explosive, Molotov cocktail, or charged with fulminating or inflammable substances. In the years to follow, technical developments moved far beyond the scope of this prohibition. It is somewhat ironic to note that larger projectiles of greater power were not prohibited in any way by this declaration. It seems that the theory of the drafters was that larger shells would not be directed primarily at personnel. Later in the Hague Declaration of July 29, 1899, dum-dum bullets and gas projectiles were prohibited. However, the Hague Regulations of 1907 merely provided that belligerents do not have an unlimited right as to the choice of means of injuring the enemy. 146. That would be HR, puff and stuff. Hague Relations, Art 22, Article 22. The only codified expressions of this general rule forbade the use of poison, or poison weapons. So you could use hairspray and put some type of material in there and light it on fire. That's not really poison, is it? Hairspray poison? I don't know. Arms, projectiles, or material calculated to cause unnecessary suffering. I've never burned hairspray before, so I wouldn't know, but I would imagine that would definitely burn off your hair for sure. And the short-lived Hague Declaration of 1899 forbade the discharge of projectiles and explosive from balloons. This non-acceptance of the latter limitation was due to the fact that far-seeing nations could see the military potential of air power and did not want to tie their hands in the event of future war. The rules that developed prior to 1925 touched only the marginal weapons and not those that were more likely to be decisive. What does that mean? The marginal weapons. I don't know what that means. Like the regular ones? The Hague Rules of Air Warfare 1923 were not adopted. Oh, they weren't? However, an important advance was the Geneva Gas Protocol of 1925, which also prohibited bacteriological warfare for the first time. The United States never became a party to this agreement, but many other major military powers have done so. So that's interesting. Insofar as the rules of land warfare, oh, now we're talking about the land. You mean like earth, right? The dirt part, the landmass warfare. Instead of the sky or the water, I get you. Okay, so to which this article is limited. Oh, okay, so this article is limited to land? Are concerned these thin pieces of international legislation are all that has been accomplished in the field of weapons limitation since the advent of the Libra Code. Despite the technological revolution in weaponry, and as the phrase is popularly used today, weapons systems, also the thrust of all these bits of legislation is to define the prohibited means rather than define the permitted means. Oh, so they're going to tell us what we can't use in war rather than define the permitted means. Okay. The effect of this is to cause the legislation to be restricted in application to its terms and to permit new weapons to be developed in a legal vacuum. That just sounds weird. The status of the law prior to 1925 was such as to impel spite to say, I don't know what spite is, spite, air power and war rights. Oh, for some unknown reason. Oh, they misspelled all that. For some unknown reason, this statement has not been qualified in editions published since the 1925 gas protocol. Oh, really? Like human air or something? The rule that unnecessary suffering must not be caused by one's choice of the instrument of destruction means today in practice that explosive and expanding small arms ammunition is banned. You're talking about like a hand grenade? Expanding small arms ammunition is banned? And that all attempts to extend this pitiful range have failed. This statement was made before the Geneva Gas Protocol of 1925, but the sentiment is still applicable. Oh boy, go back. 2, withholding of sustenance. Oh, okay, let's get into this one because this is coming around the corner over here. Within Lieber's framework of military necessity, all withholding of sustenance or means of life from the enemy is permitted. Wait, what did that just say? That all to withhold the sustenance or means of life from the enemy is permitted. Oh man. So they are going to try to prevent us from having food and water. How much you want to bet? I mean, not that I'm putting it out there because I'm not trying to put it out there, but I'm just saying they're permitting that when they make you those people who don't want to get shots or obey whatever. I'm just saying. Man, we better start growing your own food right now. I'm just saying. And do so. I need to get some water purification or something. This idea is reflected in Article 17, here we go, which after stating that war is not carried on by arms alone, provides that it is lawful to starve the enemy, great, armed or unarmed, oh, great, in order to defeat him more quickly. Certainly, this is a justification of contraband and blockades, such as the long-distance blockade and the extended contraband lists imposed upon Germany in World War I by Great Britain. This concept is apparently still accepted, and its continued utility is obvious. The customary rule regarding sieges was codified in Article 18 by Professor Lieber. In that article, he provides that when the commander of a besieged area expels the non-combatants in that area in order to lessen the number of those who consume his stock of provisions, it is lawful through an extreme measure to drive them back so as to hasten on the surrender. The application of this rule during World War II is illustrated by the case of the United States versus von Lieb, the high command case. Von Lieb approved an order to drive back civilians by artillery fire if they attempted to leave the besieged town of Leningrad. Sheesh. That's probably why they say, when you see the abomination of desolation, run out of the cities, hurry up, Andale Arriba and stuff like that. Okay. So the tribunal, on the basis of the customary rule, acquitted von Lieb of a charge based on this action. This rule has been somewhat softened by Article 17 of the 1949 Geneva Civilian Convention for the Protection of Civilian Persons in Time of War. Article 17, the parties to the conflict shall endeavor to conclude local agreements for the removal from besieged or encircled areas of wounded, sick, infirm, and aged persons, children and maternity cases, and for the passage of, ministers of all religions. Okay, I'm gonna have to get my ministers something. Medical personnel and medical equipment on their way to such areas. However, it is clear from the wording that this is not a compulsory rule, but merely a strong recommendation to the besieging commander. Oh, is that like a mandate? The customary rule still remains in effect. Most of the discussion of the rules up to this point has dealt with people and their activities. Of necessity, Lieber had to include rules dealing with property. Okay, let's talk about our property now. Treatment of property. 3. There has been a great deal of confusion and continuing controversy regarding the treatment of property under the laws of land warfare. The British Manual breaks its chapter, 13, dealing with the treatment of enemy property into 4 sections. Number 1, private property. Number 2, public property. Number 3, property on the battlefield. And number 4, general devastation. A study of the numerous paragraphs under these sections reveals that in many cases it is not clear whether the rules set out deals with property in an occupied area, on the battlefield, or to both places. Federal Manual 2710 treats the problem in 2 parts: treatment of property during combat, and number 2, treatment of property under belligerent occupation. This treatment is not entirely satisfactory, either chiefly due to the vagueness of the terms used and the problem of defining the term battlefield, as used in paragraph 59 of the Federal Manual 2710, which, that's 27-10, 27-10, which deals with booty of war. Booty. All right, page 32. The key article of the Lieber Code dealing with the treatment of property during combat is Article 45, which provides as follows: all captures and booty belong, according to the modern law of war, primarily to the government of the captor. Prize money, whether on sea or land, can now only be claimed under local law. 158, Libra Article 45. The second paragraph, insofar as applicable to prizes in land warfare, is obsolete. Huh? The second paragraph, insofar as applicable to prizes in land warfare, is obsolete? What does that mean? Like, what? Do they say stuff and then just cancel it out as soon as they say it? That's weird. The second paragraph, insofar as applicable to prizes in land warfare, is obsolete. What does that mean? Article 45, in its first paragraph, refers to a former customary rule under which all enemy property, public or private, which a belligerent could get hold of on the battlefield was booty and could be appropriated. Oh, a belligerent could get hold of on the battlefield was booty. Oh, give me that. I'll take that. AR M16 rifle. I'll take the grenade launcher and the, what else? The Claymore mines and all that ammunition and all that fun stuff. However, the rule is now obsolete. Oh, darn it, I was dreaming for a second. However, the rule is now obsolete as regards private property belonging to prisoners of war, except military papers, arms, horses, and the like. Wait, what did that mean? However, the rule is now obsolete. Oh, as regards private property belonging to prisoners of war, except military papers, arms, horses, and the like. I don't know what that means. Like, what? Does that mean we can take it? We can't. No, it was a belligerent. I didn't say I was a belligerent. It is also obsolete as to property of private citizens, except that when has been used by the troops to further the fighting. I'm going to take that truck. I'll take that big truck that you have right there because I'm going to further the fighting. Get in the car, you guys, let's go. This latter category of property might be confiscated on the theory that it has forfeited its right. Did you forfeit your right to be a truck? Yes, you did. To be treated as such when it is used by the armed forces for, give me that, I have a gun, I'm gonna take your truck, for active military purposes. Of course, the customary rule, as expressed by Lieber, is still valid as regards public enemy property found on the battlefield. Don't be parking your car on that battlefield, I'm just saying. Paragraph 59B of Federal Manual 27-10 states that other than the listed exceptions for prisoners of war, private, movable property captured or found on the battlefield may be appropriated only to the extent that such taking is permissible in occupied areas. Don't be driving your motor vehicle or your RV, your recreational vehicle to those occupied areas. I'm just saying. Pursuing the matter in this manner seems to support the view expressed regarding private property, which has been used for military purposes. The only provisions of the Hague Regulation of 1907 dealing with property which do not appear to apply to occupied areas are Articles 23G. 161, what's that? It is especially forbidden to destroy or seize the enemy's property unless such destruction or seizure be imperatively demanded by the necessities of war. I have to blow up your RV because I gotta kill all those people over there. So the necessity of war that we took all of your stuff and your printer and all your papers and everything. And those articles relating to bombardments. Under this view, these articles would be applicable to areas invaded, but not yet occupied. Oh, so invaded is different than when it's occupied. Great. The minutiae, I tell you. These isolated provisions are hardly sufficient to guide the invading commander. Also, the idea that the limitations of the Hague regulations contained in Section 2 on occupation should be applied by analogy in areas not yet occupied is not entirely satisfactory because it may impose unduly strict limitations on the military commander in a combat situation. Lieber, steeped in a tradition of respect for property and particularly private property, linked the treatment of property and of persons. Oh, so you're talking now about persons being property. Okay, that's great. He felt that wanton violence against persons in an invaded country, such as rape, wounding, and murder, the needless destruction of property and pillage were all such heinous crimes that they warranted death as a punishment or some other severe punishment. Yeah, I think so. 164. Lieber, Article 44, and the last paragraph of Article 44, Lieber imposes a harsh rule that somewhat shocks the contemporary mind that has been trained, excuse me, in the concept of due process of law. He states that any soldier or officer who is caught in the act, you got to be caught in the act, though, of committing such violence and who disobeys a superior who orders him to abstain from it may be lawfully killed on the spot by such superior. Yeah, that would be cool. I think you're dead. I'm just saying. I saw you put your thing in there and do that, what you're doing. Hey. That. Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, so pillage, of course, is expressly prohibited, meaning you can't be pillaging, taking all my stuff, by Articles 28 and 47 of the Hague Regulations of 1907, and by Article 33 of the Geneva Civilian Convention of 1949. 165C also, Federal Manual 27-10, paragraphs 47, 272, 397, British Manual, paragraphs 42, 306, 626. Also a member of the armed forces of the United States who before or in the presence of the enemy quits his place of duty to plunder or pillage may be tried for the offense of misbehavior before the enemy. 166 is the UCMJ, Article 99. Is that United? What is that? I've heard of UCMJ. Military Justice? I think so. It's the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Yeah, good. The other offenses outlined by Lieber are also punishable under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and by similar laws in the armed forces of other nations. his prohibition against needless destruction of property is consistent with modern law, of course. It might be phrased another way to the effect that the destruction of property is limited by military necessity. 167. See language in Lieber Articles 15 and 16 to this effect. See HR Article 23G, GCC Article 147. Article 147 of the 1949 Geneva Civilian Convention probably has supplemented Article 23G of the 1907 Hague Regulations. Article 147 of the Civilian Convention characterizes extensive destruction and appropriation of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly as a grave breach of the convention. This article may be construed either to prohibit general devastation or by implication to recognize extensive destruction as lawful if justified by military necessity. 168, Annex 111, Cambridge Conference Supernote 163 at 13. An example of destruction permitted by military necessity is found in the High Command trial Willem von Lieb and others. In that case, the United States Military Tribunal at Nuremberg, Germany, held that under the circumstances of the case, the general devastation ordered by the accused in Russia may have been within the measures permitted by military necessity as recognized by Article 23G of the Hague Regulations. The court said defendants in this case were in many instances in retreat under arduous conditions, wherein their commands were in serious danger of being cut off. Under such circumstances, a commander must necessarily make quick decisions to meet the particular situation of his command. A great deal of latitude must be accorded to him under such circumstances. What constitutes devastation beyond military necessity in these situations require detailed proof of an operational and tactical nature. Along with the articles dealing with the use and disposition of property, Lieber includes an article providing that classical works of art, libraries, scientific collections, or precious instruments, such as astronomical telescopes, must be secured against all avoidable injury, even when contained in fortified places under siege or bombardment. Protect that painting. This is similar to the protection of Article 56 of the 1907 Hague Regulations and Article 5 of the Hague Convention number 9 of 18 October 1907 concerning bombardment by naval forces in time of war. The Ruhrich Pact 172. Treaty on the Protection of Artistic and Scientific Institutions and Historic Monuments. Yeah. Well, lots of institutions and monuments mentioned in Federal Manual 2710. Let me look up there. Trials of war criminals before the Nuremberg. Oh, that's probably the Nuremberg Military Tribunal. Lieber Article 35. This same article contains a mention of like protection for hospitals. Oh, see the discussion on flags of protection. Oh, okay, gotcha. This is similar to the protection of Article 56, 1907 Hague Regulations, Article 5 of the Hague Convention, number 9 of, I read this. Bombardment naval, getting tired, I'm gonna have to stop. The Ruhrich Pact, to which the United States and some other of the American republics are parties, also gives a neutral and protected status to historic monuments and to institutions of the type described by Lieber. The Hague Convention of May 1954 on the protection of cultural property in the event of armed conflict, which was intended to have a wider geographical coverage than the Ruhr Pact, was entered into force on August 7, 1956. A great number of the Warsaw Pact nations and some of the NATO nations have ratified this convention. The United States has signed, but not yet ratified this convention. Is that so? That's interesting. The problem of marking protected buildings and property has always been a concern of treaty writers. All right, I'm stopping right here. This is the bottom of page 34, and we'll be getting on flags of protection. I am getting so sleepy. I've got to go to bed. I don't even know what time it is. Oh, 11:33. No wonder. Okay. See you next time. Good night.